What's poppin', dogs? Mr. Allen here, about to prove quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram, okay? And we're given a couple congruent triangles. Now, it might not seem like much, but when you're given a couple congruent triangles, you got a lot of information. All of my corresponding sides are congruent, and all of my corresponding angles are congruent. Now, let's think about, how do I prove something's a parallelogram? Well, I can get opposite sides parallel. I can get opposite sides congruent. I can get one pair of opposite sides parallel and congruent, and there's a few other ways as well. But those are the most common. And honestly, the most common one would be the one pair of opposite sides are both congruent and parallel. Now, right off the bat, let's take a look. If these two triangles, ABE and CDF, are congruent, would AB and CD be congruent sides? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I've already got one pair of opposite sides congruent. Now, how do I get them parallel? Well, we have to think back to parallel lines and how that all works. Well, I need congruent angles or supplementary angles in a certain order, right, in a certain location to prove lines parallel. Well, if I had congruent angles, which I can get from congruent triangles, then I can get some parallel lines. Check it out. If I want to prove this guy here is parallel to this guy here, these two angles right here and right here, they are congruent, okay? And it might be a little hard to tell, but I'm going to highlight this in a different color right now for you. I'm going to go orange with this one. This line right here, this line right here, and then this transversal, all the way down, they are alternate interior angles. I'm going to draw this really small right here. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We are dealing with, I don't know why I'm making the sound effects, those two angles right here. That's this guy and this guy, okay? So I have alternate interior angles congruent, therefore I have parallel lines. Did I just lay out all the framework for writing up this proof? I certainly did. And I like to do that when I'm tackling proofs, okay? I like to start marking up my diagram, see what I'm working with, what do I need, what can I actually get, and then I'll formulate my whole thing, okay? So now let's write it up. I've got my first step, everybody's favorite. It is the given. All right, some teachers do want you to write it all out. I often said, just draw an arrow, but just in case your teacher is a bit of a stickler here. I was thinking about A, and then I was thinking about a triangle. So that is a triangle right now. This is the A, B, E. Triangle ABE is it's congruent to triangle CDF. Okay. Now, what are we going to be using from that? Well, the first thing we said were the opposite sides were congruent, right? Well, the AB and CD were congruent. So I'm going to write that down. So AB is congruent to CD. And why was that? CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. This kind of looks almost like a lowercase b. There we go. That's better. It was bothering me. Okay, so CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Voila. Now, that's one thing that I needed to prove this is a parallelogram. I also wanted to prove the opposite sides parallel. To do that, I needed the congruent angles. So let's write that one up. Now, some folks would allow you to do this in the same step because it is going to be the same reason. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent also applies to the angles. Some teachers may want you to do a separate step, totally up to your teacher. I always did it all in the same step, but they are angles, one segments. Some people are a little sticklers about that. I'll write it in a separate step just in case, all right? Just in case. I don't want the math police coming after me, man. I do street math, right? And sometimes you get in trouble with that. So ABE, lovely, is congruent to angle CDF, CDF. And then our reason, once again, is CPCTC. Boom. Okay. Now I'm using this, because this isn't going to get me my parallelogram yet. I'm using this to prove that two lines are parallel. So now what I'm going to say is that AB and CD are parallel. Okay. Now, there's segments that are parallel. More formally, you would say that these lines are parallel. Now, they're not really lines. They're line segments on the diagram, but technically they extend on forever. That's kind of a nitpicky thing as well. Sometimes proofs, some are more sticklers, some are not. Always check with your teacher. I was always, pretty lenient on some of that notation there of like, well, there's segments of the diagram. Who cares? Okay. So why is that? Well, my alternate interior angles are congruent, therefore I have parallel lines. So for this one, I write if alternate interior angles congruent, then parallel lines. Yay. Can even write parallel lines. Something like that, okay? Some people just say like the converse of the alternate interior angles theorem. I like to actually write it out. It also helps me remember like what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I don't always write out my reasons in full, but those are ones that I find value in doing that, all right? Now, number 5 here, I've got one pair of opposite sides, both parallel and congruent at this point, right? We have a parallelogram. So we have A, B, C, D is a parallelogram. And my reason is one pair of opposite sides, opposite OPP, yeah, you know me, opposite sides, congruent, and parallel, then parallelogram. Woo! Guys, this is the first video with fancy new markers. I got 12 of them, man. I don't even know what to do with all these markers yet. Got to make more videos and use all the markers. Hopefully they're showing up okay and write nicely and all that stuff. We'll see. You know, just got to test it out. But there we go, guys. First proof with the new markers. We got 5 steps. Could have done it in 4 if you combine the 2 and 3 right here. That's what I would have done. But again, I want to make it as formal as possible for most teachers there. But always take a look at the big picture first. Mark some things up. Kind of get a general idea where you're going, what is needed to get where you're going, and I usually meet somewhere in the middle with those. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, pop it in the comments. If you want a specific one, send it to me, whatever, and I'm happy to make a video on it. So have a great day, guys, and thanks for watching.